Hi everyone, so we all know I'm not Vietnamese enough because I'm too American. But am I not Chinese enough? So for those of you who don't know, my grandparents on my dad's side are actually Chinese. So I think my grandfather on my dad's side was born in China, and my dad forgot where my grandma was born. But anyways, they eventually, through whatever means, settled in Vietnam. So my dad was born in Vietnam and raised as a Chinese Vietnamese. He even went to Chinese school and everything in Vietnam. But he describes himself as full Vietnamese because of what China tries to do with Vietnam, politically, claiming parts of Vietnam as theirs or whatever. So my mom is full Vietnamese, and I grew up in America in a Vietnamese household. We spoke Vietnamese, there was no Chinese spoken, and did Vietnamese things. So culturally I'm very Vietnamese, but I have a very Chinese name. My first name comes from a Chinese word, and so is my last name. My last name is actually Liu in Chinese. So I claim to be Vietnamese, but sometimes it depends on who I'm talking to. I'll also add that I'm Chinese. It actually all depends on if I'm talking to a Chinese person, I will say I have Chinese background. Because a lot of times, this just happened to me yesterday at orientation. I sat down and two Chinese girls asked me if I was Chinese or if I spoke Chinese, and I said no. And then I explained to them my background. But after they learn, it also further complicates things because I did take Chinese in college, so I know a little bit of Chinese. So I remember during undergrad I would confuse people so they didn't know if I was actually Chinese or not. But anyways, it's as soon as they heard that I wasn't Chinese, they lost interest in me. Now this question of whether I'm not Chinese enough comes up because I posted a selfie of myself on Instagram the other day, captured Jungle Asian, which is an Ali Wong joke, where she groups Asians in two categories: the fancy Asians and the jungle Asians. Fancy Asians get to host the Olympics and other cool events, whereas jungle Asians host diseases. So it's kind of like a caste system, I guess. So fancy Asians are Chinese and Japanese and Korean, and then jungle Asians are Vietnamese people and Filipino people. And in my last video, you'll notice how I was referencing kind of that, how I wanted to be the Korean Americans who are killing it in beauty and makeup, and they're so put together and goals, whereas I think I cut it out in my last video, but there aren't that many Vietnamese Americans in the industry because we're jungle Asians. So my sister told me I look too Chinese to call myself a jungle Asian, and I was mind blown. I was mind blown because I may look Chinese, but I'm not Chinese enough for Chinese boys to like me. So that's the main topic of this conversation, to let you guys know that there is discrimination and racism among different Asian ethnic groups. Not necessarily that Chinese boys not liking me is discrimination or whatever, and this is all speculation. No one would outright say to me oh, we can't date because you're not Chinese. Anyway, so 99% of the boys I've liked are Chinese, specifically Chinese Americans. I just don't like Vietnamese men because I don't find them attractive, and I know how they are, their personality, and I don't really want that in a life partner. And you know the saying how girls like to choose, not subconsciously choose men who are like their father. So maybe because my dad is technically Chinese, that's why I'm attracted to Chinese guys. But anyways, 99% of the guys I've liked are Chinese. Some of them ended up with Chinese girls. If I wasn't Vietnamese, would I have had a better chance? So I know one Chinese kid. He couldn't handle me because I was too wild. AKA I was too jungle Asian. I'm just joking, of course, but like he prefers a girl who doesn't like to stir the pot and like my YouTube videos, my jokes, they're like controversial AF. Like he can't deal with that. Which is funny because another Chinese guy told me that I was too boring when he didn't even give me a chance to like really show myself. Maybe he just said that as an excuse to say that as to why he couldn't date me because I wasn't Chinese. So like his ex was Chinese and like he told me he liked the girl who was Chinese. So I'm not Vietnamese enough for Vietnamese guys to like me. I'm not American enough for American guys, aka white guys, to like me. And I'm not Chinese enough for Chinese guys to like me. What's a girl to do? I've been aware of how my Vietnamese side and my American side can and have conflicted, but I've never been aware of how my Chinese identity affected my life until now. I forgot to mention why I feel like a jungle Asian from a socio-economic point of view. Jungle Asians and fancy Asians can also be looked at as jungle Asian Americans and fancy Asian Americans. So Vietnamese people, a lot of them came here by boat. And versus like Chinese Americans, they already have a long establishing history in America, so they have risen up the ranks in terms of socioeconomic status. So I feel more like a jungle Asian because neither of my parents are college educated and they work really hard to provide for my sister and I. And I'm not ashamed of that, but when I look at a guy I liked, this Chinese American guy who was in a white fraternity at a prestigious like private school, and his dad is like a professor, like that makes me wonder if I'm good enough for him. I mean, he turned out to be an asshole, so that counteracts everything, but yeah, I also feel jungle from a socio-economic point of view.